Hello, this is KYC News. We provide you with the most up-to-date and reliable information for the day. First and foremost, we want to achieve perfect health with a sincere desire. During Biden's visit, the U.S. wants to increase Arab-Israeli normalization. Jong Un talks on alterations to frontline forces. At the same time, 14 maternity nurses are expecting. During Biden's visit, the U.S. wants to increase Arab-Israeli normalization. Washington. One of U.S. Vice President Joe Biden's stated objectives for his next trip to the Middle East appears to be to broaden the scope of normalization between Israel and the Arab world. When the U.S. president visits the area next month, a senior U.S. official stated on Wednesday that Washington is working to advance the process and gave the impression that more Arab countries were considering similar gestures. From July 13 to July 16, Biden will visit Israel, the West Bank, and a regional gathering in Saudi Arabia with the leaders of Jordan and Egypt in addition to the monarchs of the Gulf Cooperation Council. The Biden administration is promoting increased cooperation between Israel and the Arab countries with which it has connections, according to Barbara Leaf, the top U.S. ambassador for the Middle East. She didn't go into great depth about the attempts though. In the area that is not in the public domain, we are collaborating with a few other nations. She told a congressional subcommittee, and I think you'll see some intriguing stuff around the time of the president's visit. Leaf declined to elaborate when asked if she would like to step on the president's toes. As part of the so-called Abraham Accords, which former President Donald Trump saw as a crowning achievement in foreign policy, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Morocco in 2020 became the first Arab states to normalize relations with Israel in decades. The relationship between the UAE and Israel, according to Leaf, is moving like gangbusters, but the Biden administration also wants to promote wider collaboration. In March, in Israel's Negev Desert, Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with his counterparts from Israel, the UAE, Morocco, Bahrain, and Egypt. The Palestinian Authority and Jordan, the only other Arab country to recognize Israel but which has experienced escalating tensions over the status of Jerusalem, were invited to the gathering, according to Leaf, which the United States planned to be an annual event. According to Leaf, the discussions will improve cooperation on issues like water, tourism, health, and food security. The U.S. effort to normalize relations with Arab nations is consistent with Israel's efforts to utilize the Iranian threat to the area as a point of agreement for bilateral relations with those nations. Israeli leaders anticipate that U.S. President Joe Biden's trip to the area next month would further broader normalization while assisting in the establishment of a shared regional security umbrella. Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid stated last week that we are attempting to put Iran under siege both security-wise and policy-wise, since Iran is a menace to the entire region, not just Israel. Therefore, all actions that we are taking in the region must be taken into account as part of this effort, especially in the wake of a visit as significant as President Biden's to Israel and Saudi Arabia. Israel and Saudi Arabia have both resisted waning international attempts to resurrect a 2015 nuclear agreement between Iran and major nations that was left in tatters by the U.S. unilateral departure in 2018 under Biden's predecessor Donald Trump. Lapid declined to comment on any discussions currently taking place with the Saudis but stated that a formal peace deal remained Israel's long-term objective. As with every other nation in the area, we eventually hope to reach a peace agreement with Saudi Arabia. Iranian and Russian FMs attend a joint press conference in Tehran. Following their Thursday bilateral discussions in Tehran, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his Iranian counterpart Hossein Amir Abdollahian participated in a joint press conference. The 2015 nuclear agreement between Iran and the major nations, according to Lavrov, has Moscow's complete support. Amir Abdollahian claimed that all U.S. sanctions should be lifted in order to revive Tehran's 2015 nuclear agreement and attributed the impasse to the United States. Jong Un talks on alterations to frontline forces. In light of rumors that the regime may arm frontline artillery units with tactical guided weapons and short-range ballistic missiles, state media reported Thursday that North Korean leader Kim Jong Un and high-ranking officials discussed changes to frontline military units during a significant party meeting. Kim presided over the third and large session of the 8th Central Military Commission of the ruling Korean Workers' Party on Wednesday, where the work of additionally confirming the operation duties of the frontline units of the Korean People's Army, KPA, and modifying the operation plans was discussed, according to an English-language report by the state-run Korean Central News Agency, KCNA. According to the KCNA, without providing any further context, Kim emphasized the significance of implementing major military measures to boost the operational capability of the frontline troops. The rearrangement of important military organizational units was one of the topics covered at the conference Kim presided over, according to the KCNA. Despite the ambiguity of the KCNA narrative, it was clear from meeting photos that South Korea was the target of the proposed military rearrangement. Ri Dae-sop, the head of the Korean People's Army's General Staff, was photographed presenting to Kim and other attendees while holding a map of the Korean peninsula's eastern coast, according to pictures released by the KCNA. Despite the map's blurriness in the image, South Korean officials claimed that it was still clear what the North's intended adjustments were. On condition of anonymity, a representative of Seoul's Unification Ministry stated, "We feel it highly likely that North Korea will raise its military threat against us, given that the map issued by KCNA shows South Korea's eastern portion on the Korean peninsula." The official hypothesized that the North's choice to reveal all alterations to border units positioned against South Korea may be a sign of impending, more severe provocations. The military of South Korea confirmed on Thursday that it is monitoring the adjustments being discussed in Pyongyang. The Joint Chiefs of Staff spokesperson, Colonel Kim Jun-rok, stated during a routine press conference, "We are closely monitoring relevant, North Korean, movements." 2 months after North Korea claimed to have tested what it called a tactical guided weapon that might ostensibly improve its nuclear warfare capabilities, the dictatorship has begun to talk about making modifications to its frontline forces. Kim Jong Un, the leader, and other senior military figures oversaw the test in April. The weapon, according to the KCNA at the time, is greatly significant in radically expanding the firepower of the frontline long-range artillery units, improving the efficiency in the operation of tactical nukes and diversifying their firepower tasks. In recent months, intelligence officials from the United States and South Korea have issued warnings that the regime is likewise prepared to carry out its 7th nuclear test. The North appeared to have finished all of its preparations for a nuclear test earlier this month, according to Park Jin, the foreign minister of Seoul, and that only a political decision remained before Pyongyang conducted a test. Before declaring a ban on nuclear and intercontinental ballistic missile testing in 2018, the nation conducted its 6th nuclear test in September 2017. The ban now looks to have been successfully lifted. 18 missile launches have been performed by Pyongyang so far this year, and U.S. and South Korean intelligence officials have recently issued warnings that the government is ready to undertake a nuclear weapons test. The North's most recent 5-year national plan, which was released in January 2021, identified this job as a priority objective. One objective the government has in mind with a nuclear test is to assess its progress in miniaturizing a tactical nuclear warhead to fit atop a ballistic missile. At the same time, 14 maternity nurses are expecting. According to Fox News, 14 nurses who work on a neonatal ward in a hospital in Kansas City are all pregnant at the same time. Caitlin Hall, a licensed nurse and the first of the group to give birth, said, "I believed I was the only one that was trying to get pregnant. Then, someone else would declare I'm pregnant approximately every 2 weeks." The due dates for the nurses are dispersed throughout December, and there are both boys and girls expected. U.S. approves $94 million sale of anti-radiation missiles to Australia. The potential sale of AGM-88E2 Advanced Anti-Radiation Guided Missiles, to Australia has received approval from the U.S. State Department. Up to 15 AGM-88E2 missiles were requested by the Australian government, with a price tag of $94 million, $134.8 million Australian dollars. Up to 15 high-speed anti-radiation missiles, HARM, rocket motors, 15 HARM warheads, and up to 15 HARM control sections are all probable components of the deal. Aside from that, the Australian government asked for EA-18G Growler test support, software, classified and unclassified, spare parts, and contractor engineering help from the U.S. government and other relevant logistical and program support aspects. To improve the survivability of Australian combatants. An improvement on the AGM-88B/C high-speed anti-radiation missile, the AGM-88E targets fixed and movable radar and communication sites, notably those that shut down in order to resist anti-radiation missiles. The missile was introduced by the U.S. Navy in 2017. The missile will improve the survivability of fighters on tactical missions by assisting the Australian military in suppressing and destroying land or sea-based radar emitters linked with opposing air defences. The deal's major contractor is Northrop Grumman Information Systems of Ridgecrest, California.